Hello, my name is Alexandra Emanuele. I'm the digital content editor with GFSR. I'm speaking with Jeff Hall. Jeff is a food safety specialist with CPMA. He's involved in all files dealing with food safety or related issues. Today, we're going to be discussing trade, regulation, and its impact on food safety. Let's dive right in, Jeff. Given there are no international food safety standards and each country has their own regulations, some with great disparity, what can we be doing more of to ensure supply chains remain safe and continuous?
Well, first of all, good afternoon, Alexandra, and I'm happy to be here on the GFSR site again. Um, I'll take just a little umbrage, I think, with the question, in that although you're right, there are no regulations. For example, there's a Canadian regulation that applies directly to the U.S. and vice versa. There certainly are standards and guidelines, let's say, international type standards globally that are out there. So I'm thinking specifically of the Codex rules. ISO has some now, and of course the GFSI, which although not a government regulation per se, certainly something that is recognized globally as the world-class food safety standards. I'm always happy to promote Canada Gap, of course, which was developed here by the Canada Gap Group, along with a number of producers. So that is another one that is world recognized, of course. So certainly, that the fact there is that disparity between different countries can be a problem. But the nice thing here in Canada is that we've got trade agreements with our international partners, particularly the U.S., where the vast majority of our fresh fruit and vegetables come in from there, in Mexico, where we do recognize each other's systems, food safety systems, which allows producers in both of the countries to not have to worry about working under two sets of rules. They can just work under the country they belong to, whether it's the US or Canada, and we have that reciprocal agreement. So certainly the more of kind of deals and the more kind of agreements that can come along that way from an international standpoint, I think the better it is for everyone. I will never see 100% alignment around the globe, and that's mostly based on the regional differences on the planet, the different growing areas, and specifically the different risks that are attributed to those various growing areas. As we continue to warm the planet up, those risks are always changing too, right? We're starting to see things in Canada and into the US that we never saw before. So it is nice to have those international partnerships because we can then reach out and discuss issues that other countries may have had for a while, just given their geography, and we can start to incorporate that into some of our regulations and procedures and whatnot.
Absolutely. So, what are your thoughts on harmonizing standards for global food trade?
So it's similar to my last answer in that I'm not sure it's something you can do at a national standard. It certainly is something that's happening as part of the trade of fresh fruits and vegetables, right? It's the industry itself which is really driving that kind of harmonization on global trade. Excuse me. When you look at products that we never used to be able to get here in Canada in the winter months, strawberries and things like that. The large importers that bring that product in, always have food safety programs in place. Generally, it's GFSI based programs, but they can have, some of them have their own, or they add on to those. So I really think that the buying community and the industry itself is really pushing towards that harmonization of products, and as they move around the country and around the globe, it's interesting. You're always seeing new products and new varietals and different types of whatever coming in. Clementines used to be, you got them in December if you were lucky, and they were a Christmas treat. Well, I bought some when I was out shopping yesterday, and I know they'll be in stock almost year round nowadays.
Mhm.
So that is really driving that harmonization. And of course, food safety being such a dominant force in the industry, it really does kind of force that stuff down through the supply chain.
So, what do you think is the biggest challenge facing exporters, and and the same question regarding importers?
So I think from an export standpoint, it's really access to markets what's important. Canada is a small country from a population standpoint, a huge country from a geography standpoint, and we really do take advantage of that geography to produce relatively huge quantities of food. We are a net exporter of food, unlike a lot of countries around the world. So having access to those markets, you know, um, having as many free trade agreements or as many trade agreements as possible to protect our producers and our processors, so they have access to a global selling place, a global market, is important for sure. Um, with respect to the import community, because approximately 70%, give or take a bit, of all of our fresh fruits and vegetables are imported into Canada, it's very important for us to have those trade agreements around the world to limit the amount of paperwork and red tape, to really let that flow travel naturally and as business and as the industry will do it. Certainly, it's important for the industry to take that responsibility very seriously from a food safety standpoint and from a quality standpoint. Um, and speaking from experience, I can tell you the industry does take it extremely seriously. So it's important for that to be recognized, and for the regulators to work with industry to allow that flow of goods while still, of course, protecting the Canadian consumer, and allowing, so both from a food safety standpoint, but also from that variety standpoint, that there's so many things that people expect now. And as our country changes, and as we grow and as we become more diverse, there's people coming from all over the world, which is great. But when they come, one of the best things we can do for them is provide them foods that remind them of home. And
Mm-hmm.
that just over the years just gets weaved into our fabric as well. So having that ability, having those trade agreements, and then letting industry kind of do what it does best to serve the markets, that'll just organically happen.
So, I guess um, what I'm hearing is, with the diversity, which is such a benefit and a joy to the consumer, comes with it, added responsibility and added food safety standards and added responsibility, I guess, that needs to be kind of addressed with each additional diverse food product. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, for sure. So one of the requirements under the new Safe Food for Canadians regulations is importers are required to understand the risks and the hazards of product they bring in. So there's various categories of fresh fruits and vegetables which are a higher risk, in a higher risk category than others. So it's important for the import community to understand what they're bringing in, because they now have that responsibility. They've always had it, but it's really laid
Mhm.
out in black and white under the SFCR now. And
Okay.
that puts that much more pressure on the importers to make sure that they are meeting those regulations. I know through CPMA, we've done a lot of work with our import members, and as we reach out to our partner organizations and whatnot, to ensure that the importers understand what's required. And
Mhm.
by and large, they want to comply. They understand the responsibilities they have, and they're working very hard to make sure that they're dotting all their I's and crossing all their T's to make sure the products can come in without a hassle, and they're protecting everybody.
Of course. Um, is there an example that you could give of a new product that has come in that kind of raised some of those issues, maybe?
Yeah, I don't like to get into specifics on categories, but you know, As the world becomes more global, as the world shrinks, as there's more trade and more product moving around, some products, will come in that have problems, maybe problems we've never seen before.
Right.
I can give you an example. Is we're tending to see more cyclospora outbreaks,
Mhm.
and I think that's twofold. One is I think we're getting much better at identifying them and being able to link them to particular products, and we're also just bringing in more products that are prone to it. And to my point before, as the climate changes, as things warm up, some of those bugs that used to be, tropical or subtropical are slowly moving north. So it's that sort of thing which the import community needs to stay on top of and ensure they understand, hey, I'm bringing in, this product. It's either had a recall on before, or, this might be something in that area. So then they can just do the legwork that's required to make sure they're bringing it in as safely as possible. Unfortunately, um, food in general will never be 100% safe. Um, and if it is, it will come in a pill form, and nobody will want to eat it. So you know what? We need to have that variety, but we also have to understand as consumers, there can be risks involved. Follow the right procedures when it comes to washing your fruits and vegetables and washing your hands and all that kind of common sense stuff. And we'll continue to enjoy a wide variety of products.
Exactly. Speaking of washing our hands, how do you think COVID has impacted trade and food safety?
Um, so it's interesting in that there's a number of procedures, and I'm kind of an old time preacher of food safety practices, I guess. Wash your hands, all the basic things
Mhm.
that we've been telling people to do for years, um, has really come to fruition now. Certainly, the COVID-19 pandemic has put stresses on the food supply chain, like it has done every supply chain. Of course, the difference with the food is, you know, it has to continue to move. We're not talking about televisions. And if you don't get your television till next month, you'll be fine. If you don't get some food till, probably 6, 7 hours from now, we start to have problems. So it's really important that those lines stay open. The government has been excellent over the last little while in communicating with industry. Obviously, my focus is on the fresh fruit and vegetable side of things, in keeping industry updated on what's coming, the changes, what's required. You know, this I mean, this pandemic is something that, for most of the people alive on the planet right now, they've never seen something like this, right? The closest we've ever come to it was the Spanish flu just after the First World War there, and of course, there's still a lot of folks around that were around when the Second World War was on, and remember the hardships that caused. Um, so it certainly has put pressures on the supply chains. The supply chains have been extremely resilient. Um, when you're dealing with food, especially when you're dealing with something as perishable as fresh fruits and vegetables, you always have to be quick on your feet, because you just don't have the time to wait for 2 or 3 days or a week, because by the time something gets here, you know, the quality's gone, and you can't sell it. So the produce industry has been very dynamic in trying to stay on top of that. Yes, it's caused some problems, but and there were a few shortages of things early on in the pandemic. But nowadays, when you go to your local grocery store, the odds of you not finding what you're looking for without a suitable replacement, is pretty low. So I think from that standpoint, the industry has really adapted well to the changes. And like everything, you learn from it. You learn there are areas what maybe you were doing things where you didn't need to, and then there's areas where maybe you need to do more things, right? It's really, I think the biggest thing that's come out of it is the need to make sure that the supply chains are diversified. So if you're relying on getting all your product from one producer in one part of the world, that obviously puts you at a higher risk from a business standpoint than if you've got kind of a backup where if in this part of the world they're really having problems and things can't get through the ports, let's say, well, you've got a backup which hopefully can help fill the void. So it's all about adapting, and it's all about thinking out of the box, which the fresh fruit and vegetable industry has been doing very, very well.
With that, thank you so much, Jeff Hall. It was a pleasure speaking with you.
Thanks you.